Hi people, mo innovation Dr. again obviously, as always. Yeah, the header of the video speaks for itself. Be mindful of being traumatized, be mindful of having trauma or traumas. Just be mindful of your own mental state and heed not being traumatized. Let me just put it that way. Okay. See to it that you're at the very least aware of being traumatized, if that be the case. I've already done a video in the past on how to heal or how to cope with trauma, etc. You'll see that pop up in the end screen or at the end screen at the end of this video if you want to watch that. But I'm going to discuss trauma in a different context. The thing is, and again, the header speaks for itself. I'm simply reminding people because a lot of people, they're traumatized and they don't even know that they're traumatized. And yeah, what else can I say? They're traumatized and they either genuinely don't know, or they simply apply the ostrich method, as I like to call it, or like to put it. They simply, they practice absolute and utter denial. Okay, as in la, I don't know, I'm not traumatized, it doesn't exist, no, I'm fine, everything is fine, I don't want to hear anything. Yeah, like that. And you will not believe, this is more of a personal story. I'm not really going to explain specifically how to cope and deal with trauma. That's what the other video is for, or was for, and still is for, obviously. I'm simply going to discuss how many times, I'm going to give people more than a few examples, everybody watching this, of how I've seen people literally be traumatized and they're not aware of it. And it applies to everyday situations, like real life examples. I think a year or two ago, there was some Russian guy, he lives in Sweden, that called me. And he couldn't believe that he thought maybe that my number was like fake or that no one was going to pick up or something like that. And then when I picked up, because I saw on my phone Sweden, I recognized the country code for Sweden, so yeah, and my phone also recognized it, indicated Sweden. I was like, someone from Sweden is calling me, okay. Picked up, and of course I'm not going to divulge his name or anything. As a matter of fact, I don't even think that I remember his name. I simply spoke to him, and I told him, okay, we can have a chat if you want. He's simply like an enthusiast, and he simply wanted to discuss, neutral stuff and blah, 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 blah. And yeah, with him, he's an example. I noticed this. Okay, at surface level, he seems fine. He looks like your typical Dimitri or your typical Ivan. Your typical Russian. But right off the bat, he looks normal at surface level. Right off the bat, I asked him something as simple as, how should I put this? I asked him something as simple as, what was it again? Bear in mind, this was 2 years ago, so the details are a bit fuzzy. I asked him something neutral, as in, where he lives or something like that. And his response was, that is more of a private matter. I'm like, okay. I'm just asking for good measure's sake. I don't intend on doing anything with the information. I can't, even if I wanted to, in all honesty, but fine. Let's just move on. You see what I mean? Okay. I asked him a neutral question, and he responds as if I'm essentially probing. I'm asking an inappropriate question. He's acting like I asked him how many times he goes to the bathroom a day. Let's just put it that way. Again, red flag number one. And there was also something else. When I spoke to him through Skype, I couldn't put my finger on it. Okay? I couldn't put my finger on it. I only spoke to him the one time. And I was just like, okay, man. But yeah, in any case, I immediately noticed that, hey, this guy's been traumatized. He's been abused and or taken advantage of in his life. Okay, people have abused him or disrespected him to the point where he views someone asking him a normal, legitimate question without any ulterior negative motives, as he views it as a personal attack, essentially an invasion of his privacy, to put it that way. See what I mean? Perfect example. Another example, I had it when I was still the average person. When I was growing up, when I was like a teenager, I was like, I was like below 20, around 18 years old. I also had it, but it was due to all the negativity, all the black magic, all the negative spiritual energy, and all of the negativities it caused. People giving me a hard time, people bullying me, stuff like that. Really, just people overall treating me like crap, caused by the black magic and all the negative energy. And it left me, I'm not gonna say literally traumatized, because it's not the average way, but still, we can use the phrase trauma here. It left me, hypothetically speaking, traumatized to the point where I remember people ask me, in hindsight, I remember people ask me normal questions, for example, and I would view everything that they asked me as an attack, and I reacted viciously. And I remember people told me, it's just a joke, I'm just joking. I'm like, yeah, I know that you're joking. Okay, but I literally reacted along the lines of someone made a simple joke with me, right? As in, for example, I'm at the supermarket paying something, someone walks by that knows me, like from the neighborhood or similar. Hey, can I have $10? Just as a gag, obviously it's just a joke. And I responded, have you lost your mind? Are you insane? No! That's how I responded. You tell me if that's normal. No, that's not normal. That immediately says, the fact alone that I reacted so aggressively means that people have treated me badly in the past, and as a result or consequence, a direct result or consequence, I react viciously. Okay, I react in an unjust manner. That's not a normal response. Okay, I essentially lash out at everything and everyone. Someone simply asks me something. Hey Marino, what is it? What do you want? That's not normal. See, if I place myself in the shoes of a stranger, I'd be able to look at myself and say that, hey, this guy has had a tough time. That's why he's being so aggressive. He's aggressive because people have treated him, or he's been subject to mistreatment or nothing but negativity in the past, or still is, and as a result, he is, metaphorically speaking, traumatized. He can't respond normally. It's like anger and hate has become part of who he is. Okay, it's part of his personality. Whenever you ask him something, he's not aware of it, but he acts in an aggressive manner. He acts in a non-friendly and unfriendly manner, and it just goes on and on and on and on. Imagine you're a guy, you're with a woman, not romantically. You're literally just like with a female friend or a female acquaintance, and by accident your hand touches like her breast. It like briefly grazes. If she goes like this, obviously that's not normal. That's not normal at all. That means that she most likely has been a victim of sexual abuse, and that's why she's responding that way. That's why she violently jerks upon impulse before she even knows what she's doing. Yeah, people have that. The same way with people that have been subject to physical abuse, essentially. So if you were to, for example, by accident, like you were to tap them on the shoulder, but you tapped a little hard, just to say like this. Instead of like this, it's like this. They'll immediately also have like a jerking response, or they might outright just impulsively, punch in your direction. That's also not normal. These are all examples of trauma. These are all examples of what happens when you're subject to abuse, the kind of trauma depending on the kind of abuse, just like I stated in the examples, in the aforementioned examples, and you'll end up behaving that way. This is mental damage, this is spiritual damage, astral damage, that definitely needs to be addressed, provided that you want to lead a normal and happy life and you want to be mentally healthy. What else can I say? I'm trying to think if I can come up with another example. I remember I spoke to a woman, for example, and she was horrendously traumatized. And every single time, fuck it, I'm just gonna say it, okay? I spoke to my ex-fiance. I remember in the beginning. I'm just bringing it up as an example, and I spoke to M, and I remember in the beginning when I first interacted with her. I mean, like way back when we first, so to speak, got to know each other, etc. When I first started communicating with M, I literally, to say, oh boy, to say that it was like walking on eggshells is the understatement of a lifetime, of multiple lifetimes. She pretty much redefined touchy-feely. Of course, people that watch the majority of my videos, or that have, simply my followers, okay, or people that have seen my videos regarding her, they know what time it is, so I'm not going to go into that. To say that she's damaged is the understatement. So, you know, when I just spoke to her in the beginning, she was so in such an unoffensively horrendous state of mind. I literally had to walk on eggshells times 10,000. It was like, I mean, I could not make a single neutral statement that she did not take personally. I, for example, make a simple statement about hygiene. I'm not joking. She immediately views it as me saying that she has bad hygiene. So, example, okay? Simple example. I say, for example, generally speaking, if you eat too much garlic, then there's a tendency to, let's just say she's eating something, and I'm simply saying, nothing that has garlic in it, like literally just a sandwich. And I simply make the statement, generally speaking, when you eat too much garlic, then it essentially promotes, or it exacerbates bad breath, or it's more prone to giving you bad breath. I'm just making a neutral statement. Your sandwich has no garlic in it. Me just seeing you eat reminds me of that general statement, as in, oh, okay. And her response was almost always something akin to, my breath doesn't smell bad, what the fuck is wrong with you? Okay, I brush 3 times a day, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. That's literally how she responded. I'm like, listen, it's a general statement. I'm not saying that you have bad breath. I'm literally just saying. You know what just saying means? No, I'm not kidding. It just went on and on and on and on and on. I also, another example I can give is that I also discussed, like, women are familiar with this. I literally made a general statement. This is out of nowhere. This was just general. I was simply talking to her, and I simply asked her, hey, are you familiar with a leaf that essentially stretches, keeps your vagina nice and tight? I mean, women in general are familiar with it, okay? There is a leaf, or there are herbs or leaves as an herbal remedy that women globally use as a means of as a vagina tightening measure. So how it works is that they simply boil these herbs or leaves, and then they sit over the fumes that come free or that are released from doing so, from the boiling, and of course not in a hot way. And those fumes, essentially, those vapors that those leaves release when cooked or boiled, they, of course at basic room temperature, they essentially, if a woman has like a loose vagina from giving birth to several children or something, it essentially tightens their vagina again. Well, bear in mind, this is literally a neutral statement. She immediately acts like, I'm like, oh my god. She's like, it's like I told her that her vagina was loose. I'm like, what? I'm like, read what I said. I literally said, I'm asking you because you're obviously a woman, and this is something that women in general know. I literally had to like explain it to her. Hey, I meant nothing with caps letters. I meant nothing with it, nothing. And only then would she calm down. I'm like, oh my, I'm like, seriously. But yeah, I already knew what time it was, so I was like, oh boy, talk about walking on eggshells. Obviously, that's not how a normal person responds. Someone that has been horrific, subject to horrific abuse, and has like 21 layers of trauma, will react that way, like everything is an attack, a personal attack. That's not normal. If a woman asks me, for example, even if a woman were to ask me, hey, do you use penis enlargement pills? I would briefly giggle and say no. Why? But I wouldn't take it as a personal attack right away. The person is simply asking me. That's why I'm asking why. I'm like, why are you asking? But I'm not going to immediately be offended or anything like that. You know, if I was traumatized, then I'd say, what? How dare you? What? Is my dick small? What the fuck is your problem? Yeah, that's how someone that's traumatized would respond. I would literally just say, as I am now, I would say, no, why? And again, if a woman said, no, it's just a general statement I'm making because a lot of guys out there use penis enlargement pills. So I was simply wondering if you care about, telling me if you're one of them, or what your thoughts are on the idea. And I would tell her what my thoughts are on the idea. I would be like, I would openly tell her, hey, listen, to each his own. I don't have a problem with guys that use it, but I personally don't want it, nor do I need it, I'm completely relaxed and calm because I know that she's literally just making a general statement. Okay, because it's essentially a guy thing. It's something relating or referring to men. It's like a habit or a custom, a potential custom, or something that's potentially customary to primarily men or primarily to men. And yeah, it just goes on and on and on. Okay, it really just goes on. But those are just a couple of examples. I've come across this stuff a lot of times, and you can immediately tell that it's not normal. Last example, okay, but it ends on a good note. In 2018, I had a dog named Serena, and I love dogs. I don't own any dogs now, for personal reasons, but in the past 3 to 4 years, I have owned several dogs, because I love dogs, like I said. And I had a dog in 2018 called Serena, or named Serena. She was like a vanilla dog, like in terms of coloration. She was white with like brown speckles and whatnot. And I adopted her from the kennel, the local shelter. And I noticed something. I remember one of my then customers, or one of my customers back then, told me that she senses that the dog has been abused or is subject to abuse or has been subject to abuse. I was like, okay, yeah, would make sense. That's why the dog is in a shelter after all, most likely. I didn't think too much of it. I just it went in one ear out the other. But I was immediately reminded of it because I noticed that the dog was traumatized. And how did it happen? The dog was essentially sitting in a chair that I put out for her to sit in. And I essentially wanted to grab I needed to like rest, for example. I lost my balance almost when like bending over to pick something up. And I wanted to put my hand on the armchair of the chair itself, on the armrest of the chair itself. And my hand by accident slipped and then it hit the dog. Not hard, but like this. Like normal. Because I just went like this and I slipped. I was like, oh, yeah, like that. And the dog immediately, in a jerking response, jumped off the chair as if I hit the dog. That's how, see what I mean? That's how the dog took it. The dog essentially perceived that I was essentially reprimanding it in a physical manner by hitting it. And saying, get off that chair, bah. And the dog simply immediately jumped off that chair and it just kept its head down in a humiliating fashion. And of course I consoled the dog. I was like, no, I wasn't hitting you. My hand just slipped, that's it. And I was immediately reminded. I was like, yeah, there you go. The dog is traumatized. Of course, my loving care made the dog normal and whatnot. The dog was like happy in no time, but still. Other people even commented. My cab drivers back then, they were all like, wow, you're really taking good care of that dog. You give that dog like everything, treats, everything. You play soccer with that dog, everything. Yeah, I used to buy tennis balls for that dog as well, you name it. But my point is that moment reminded me immediately, okay? That moment immediately reminded me of, it immediately just reminded me I was like, yeah. So that's that. What happened back then was essentially confirmation that the dog was indeed traumatized. The dog most likely came from an abusive owner, some stupid drunken guy that. The vision I'm getting in my head is that it's some drunken Indian guy that was absolutely miserable with his own life, and he essentially used the dog as a freaking mental and physical punching bag. Of course, the topic as a dog lover disgusts me just when thinking about it, or the whole notion of something like that happening just is borderline offensive to me. But again, it is what it is, as above, so below. So yeah, that's all. I'll hear it if there are any statements or remarks or comments. Bye bye. Until next time.